Thank you all for joining us on Public Square. And I want to start with you, Francesca. You got an individual development account to pursue higher education. How did that work?
Well, I was able to save $1,000 in an account, and that $1,000 was matched. So for every dollar I put in, they matched four. So at the end of it, I put $1,000 and I walked out with $5,000 total because the match was $4,000. I was able to use that $5,000 to pay for my UNM schooling.
Why was it important for you to get higher education?
Well, it's very important because I'm a single mom of two little boys. You know, reality is if you want to make more money, you have to have a degree. You do. And also, you know, I'm a role model to my little boys. I really want what's best for them, and how am I going to encourage them to go to college and to have a better future if I'm not doing that myself? So
you had to take financial literacy classes as part of being in this program. What impact did that have on you?
But the education that I obtained from the financial education courses helped me to buy my own home as a single parent. And that was something that I had ruled out long ago. I had said, well, I guess I'll just be renting. I don't know how I would ever buy a home. Being a single parent, you know, thinking if I'm not here for my kids anymore, you know, where will they go? What will they have? Now I know that they have a home. They have somewhere, and even if later I decide to move off or whatever, I could leave my home to one of my kids. That's a really great feeling.
Oh, no, the individual development account that she used was through Prosperity Works, your organization. Why are these effective in helping move people out of poverty?
The way that this works is that we think of controlling your life as a combination of assets, personal, social, and financial. And the 10 weeks of financial capability training is the launch pad for building relationships and knowledge that absolutely allow you to control your life. So, you know, you ask about the financial capability and what impact that has. When we do our exit interviews, one of the things that's so interesting to us, here's this huge asset, financial asset that somebody is going to have, probably the largest single amount of money that they've ever had in their lives. The first thing they talk about is financial capability training. Why didn't I know this? Why didn't somebody teach this to me before? Now I'm in charge of my money. My money's not in charge of me.
Do you have a particular story out of one of those, you know, exit interviews, or one of the people you've helped besides Francesca? Anyone stick out?
Well, you know, one of the ones that I love is a situation where there was a man who was developmentally disabled and legally blind. And he and his caregiver, who had just come out of prison, both of them really unemployable, right? Each had an IDA. They started a business called One Blind Man's Shredding Company. And they shred all the commercial paper in Valencia County.
Nice. Wow.
So, you know, we've had almost 1,500 people complete their IDAs. There are many more that are in the pipeline. But it really is changing the face of not only the families, but also the communities where they live.
Maite, you wanted to buy a home for a long time, and you got help from HomeWise. Why was this important to you? What was that goal?
Well, coming from Mexico, Guadalajara, and immigrating from Mexico was hard enough, you know, learning a new culture, a new language, and transitioning from one country to the other. But I can always remember like wanting my own place because of stability. Emotional, psychological, physical stability.
And that meant a home.
That meant a home because I moved from the home I knew. So it was so important to me, being 6 years old, knowing that I wanted a home. There was 5 of us, and my mom moved us constantly. So I knew that was in the back of my mind, and I knew I always wanted that for myself and for my children now, my 2 girls. You know, coming from another country and being an immigrant at first, now documented. Thanks for the Dreamers Project and DACA, Defer Action for Undocumented Students. I was able to get to where I am now, a successful homeowner. And thanks to HomeWise and the education behind it, you know, that I was able to establish that.
Yeah, I know you work for HomeWise now, but before you worked for them, they helped you get the education you needed and to qualify for buying a home. Why did you need something like HomeWise to be that intermediary?
Because my generation, speaking first generation to graduate college, to graduate high school, to graduate college, to attend a university, get a bachelor's degree, and now as a young professional, I needed all the help that I could get because the language and the culture that I come from is work, and save, and even then, let's see if there's something you can save to afford a home. So I needed all the help that I can get, all the education, all the knowledge, and all the resources. And HomeWise, you know, mission is to create successful homeowners, and they do this with the emphasis on education. So I'm like, oh, I'm there.
One of the things that that Frankie and Mita have both talked about is their children. And one of the things that we know about home ownership is that stabilization and security that they talked about translates to their children.
Yes.
And their children do better throughout their lives when they live in homes that their parents own.
Okay.
So, and that's one of the things that I had in mind, you know, that I need to change the patterns.
These two women just mentioned the two strategies to pull out of poverty: education and home ownership. And it's interesting because I think it was Francesca that said, I can pass it on to my children. So it's about, when I say wealth building, we say, oh, well, and I used to use the word Donald Trump, like, you know, it's not Donald Trump wealth. It's about an asset that you can pass and give your child a stepping stone that they don't have to take the step you took, they can take the next step. And so stabilizing neighborhoods, stabilizing families through home ownership is just critical in terms of just creating families and communities that are safe and that are prosperous and have a support system that you're moving into, because you begin to get to know your neighbors, you get to become part of the school system, and all of those things that makes a healthy community and neighborhoods for our city and our state.
So what are the stumbling blocks?
So you have to learn about the home buyer process. There's a realtor, there's a title company, I mean, there's just a cast of players and tons of documents.
And I think that's one of the good things about HomeWise that helped me just kind of be like, you know, held my hand.
Hold your hand.
Yeah, they actually held my hand. I went with the home purchase advisor, and then I attended the financial fitness class, the home buyer education class. There was a realtor within the organization. My loan was within the organization. So it was kind of like a hold-handing step, but until you get that courage and that empowerment to you know, I can do this.
But access to capital is another huge issue.
Big time.
And I mean, we're talking about IDAs and how empowering they are and how important they are to have that access to capital to either buy a home or continue on with your education or even create and start a business. All majorly important things for people to be able to have those support systems. But there are many people who are already in that pipeline and they can't get access to capital, and they may not have the time elements needed for an IDA. IDAs are amazing, and they help so many people get to that next level of asset building and empowerment. But what happens if we have a business owner who needs to take their business to the next level to continue to be economically sound, and they have credit challenges or collateral challenges? And so we've created a community microlending program for these very reasons that turn around money in less than 24 hours and are completely character-based. And people called us crazy and said, you shouldn't do that. These people are not credit worthy. They're high risk. And yet we've tested this model now for 5 years, and the default rate is less than 1%, which goes against the national average, even for the alternative to the alternatives, which is normally 6%. And it's all based on trusted relationships and grit and determination. So it flips the traditional models of how we actually stop people in their tracks from succeeding based on credit and collateral.
Talk about that dynamic, because I know that you also, your credit union, works with people who are often in the South Valley. Sometimes that's written off as like, they don't have a lot of wealth and they're high risk. Why have you found success working with folks like that as Robbins Credit Union has?
We took a different approach on lending and understanding that there are people that have had situations in the past where they haven't gotten loans, or they've had problems with loans and they're having credit issues. And we created programs to help them through this, with the thought that through financial advocacy and then also education, we can migrate them from being unbanked or a subprime member to a prime member that's earning the good interest rates as a normal consumer would get. And that helped us grow as an organization. We've all gone through trials and tribulations in life. And it's how you overcome them, and the resources that are given to you or applied to you will allow you to be able to succeed or fail. And offering a financial services to people, which would include education, I've heard that. It's extremely important to educate. So many people are coming through the system really not understanding banking philosophy. And it starts at the household. You have to understand what the budgeting is. You have to understand how credit impacts your life.
Plus prime, even that word prime, credit scores can prevent us from succeeding at almost anything, including not only owning a home, but going on with education and workforce development, but also getting jobs today, starting a business.
Absolutely.
And there are not just lower income people or people we even consider living in poverty, but middle income people who have issues with credit scores too. And we have to rebuild as a United States, and certainly in New Mexico, there are many individuals who are working who are not considered risk worthy based on how much they're earning, who can never get ahead because of how we define them. And credit is attached to almost everything we do in this country today. And we've got to find alternative ways to help people either rebuild their credit or continue to build their credit so that they can continue to grow. And it's only good for us economically. If you care nothing about the human stories, which of course are incredibly compelling, but you've got to think about this from an economic development standpoint as well.
I want to circle back to Allegra because Maita mentioned deferred action. And I have in mind, we're talking about people who are not prime, unbankable. You work with the immigrant community.
The services I provide take them from undocumented to documented, and in that sense we mean they're free from deportation, they have authorization to work in the United States, and they have access to a valid social security number, their own social security number.
This is people who are brought here very young, right? By their
right
parent.
now it's for people like Maite who were brought here very young. Obama is hoping, and has been hoping for the last year and a half, to expand this program to cover 5 million people in the United States. We are suppressing economic growth when we keep immigrants out of our community and try and keep them in an underground economy. When my clients make this transformation from undocumented to legally working in the US, they've built up all this resiliency and all this resourcefulness because they've had to live with this burden and identity and in this underground economy. So then when you provide them with the proper tools, they make extraordinary transformations. Oh, suddenly they're allowed to work. They save money. Dreamers see a 45%. Yeah, they see a 45% wage increase in the first year of making this transition.
Go ahead.
So a segment of our population are either undocumented parents or undocumented students
At Southwest Creations?
At Southwest Creations. So the ASAP program, which is the college readiness program portion of my work, really focuses in on how do we help families empower themselves, how do we teach them self-advocacy, but in the educational realm. And our goal is really to get students to college. We're talking about how do we create family assets, how do we create intergenerational wealth. Well, SEC sees that as if you go to college, your entire family is going to do better, whether you're undocumented, if you're first generation, or your middle class families, who we do have. Our families start to trust, whether they're undocumented, whether they're first generation. We have a lot of Chicano families who have experienced generations of mistreatment in the educational system. And when they see our organization and we provide them with these very basic tools and literacy, they're able to go in and really be successful. We have a 98% high school graduation rate, and 86% of our students go to college.
Just to add into the hardworking people, I also consider myself as an immigrant. This is my second year here in the United States. I come from Mexico. I live in Guadalajara too. Yeah, when I was a but I consider myself from Monterrey.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. But also, no, Monterrey. But also, as being a very good employees, they are also creating jobs.
These are people who come through your center and they're becoming entrepreneurs.
Correct. There's a lot of people in the South Valley. There's where we are located. That's our focus, is to help those entrepreneurs that comes to our door. There are Spanish speaking people, and we have to create programs to help them, because they are creating not only a good paid jobs, but also they are having their family asset grow. So they are creating assets by building their businesses. So there's a culture of working hard in the Hispanic culture. And one of the things that we want to help them is to provide all the education behind creating a business, because it's good enough to work hard, but you need to know certain things to have a successful company. So that's why we have to create and lower the barriers for low-income people to use our programs to start building their businesses. And a lot of people speak Spanish, and we have to create those programs in Spanish.
Why do you think that they need a program like the ones that the South Valley Economic Development Center offers? I mean, they could just go out and do the entrepreneurial thing.
I'll
right?
talk in my life.
Okay.
I started some businesses back in Mexico, and every entrepreneur, most of the entrepreneurs, think that they know everything because they started their business and they don't need any help. Most of the entrepreneurs I know. So when we started building our businesses, then we realized that we were making mistakes and we lose a lot of money. And sometimes you became bankrupt. You have a failure in your business. I had probably 7 failures before I have a successful company. And that doesn't have to be the case. Okay. They can go through a program like, there's a lot of programs in the city, but they can go through a program like in the South Valley Economic Development Center, and having those lessons learned without having to go through them. Also, there are the immigrant community that is struggling to have a well-paid job, but they have some skills and they have some very good recipe or a very good product, so they start trying to sell it. And that's the way that they start their business, because of necessity, right, not because of the
I see. They didn't have another option.
So one of the things that we do is actually partner with organizations that are serving high levels of the immigrant population that can't work, right? And so one of the things that happens, first of all, we understand that the immigrant population creates businesses at a rate 6 times higher than non-immigrant population. Why wouldn't we invest in that? And so one of the things that we do is provide IDAs to the immigrant population so that they can start their businesses. And with that, they get financial capability training, they get an approved business plan. And the other thing about the work that they're doing there is incubators, which is essentially what it is,
correct,
produce much better businesses with much better sustainability records.
Yeah,
You were going to say something.
solopreneurs and micropreneurs are the backbone of our economy. So if we look at how many home-based businesses are happening in Albuquerque alone and who they're owned by, you may be really surprised at the statistics. And just as Ona was talking about the incubator, now imagine trying to step out of that incubator into a Main Street, storefront. And even with IDA support and other things, maybe not being able to go to that next stage of your business. That makes no sense. And yet, again, we're dealing with these structures that are put on people around credit worthiness or risk or collateral, and we're not allowing for people to continue to grow based on the regulations that exist.
Well, as we move into the next section, we bring in our leadership folks. You're all working in these very different areas addressing poverty, but are there larger policy issues to talk about in this, or how do we move forward and sort of scale what
Absolutely.
what you're doing? Absolutely, there are.
Absolutely.
There are solutions.
You know, I wanted to touch on something that I'm hearing from everybody here. And the key thing for me is really believing in people. Believing in people and not assuming they know everything. My family worked in the fields, picking weeds, in the cotton fields, picking the weeds. My grandmother and my mother cleaned homes. So how was I supposed to know that? So what I gained through working with Prosperity Works, that financial education piece, has forever impacted my life in a positive way. I think that we have to move away from saying that people should know that. No, they don't. We have to understand their family history. Where has what is the employment of their family? How does that look like for them? But it really goes into us taking chances. So, you know, believing that people can change, they can grow. This is something that I have that we had made in a financial education class I went through, and it says that people are whole and they're not broken, and strength-based. And so when I'm hearing everybody around talking today, it's really a strength-based approach that everybody is using. And so I really think that if we continue believing in people and believing in that growth, that's key, and that's where it starts. So I thank Prosperity Works for believing in me.
Let's bring in our leadership
Okay.
folks and continue talking about that.